Let's cross to Tasmania now and catch up with Liberal Senator Claire Chandler, who also lives in an island that's just about COVID-free. Things are holding up pretty well in Tasmania, Claire. I'm keen to get your thoughts, though, on the Peter Ridd decision. The Professor Peter Ridd, we've interviewed him on this program many times and followed his trials and tribulations. He won that unfair dismissal case against James Cook University because he was essentially sacked for being a dissenter over some of their climate research. Yet they challenged that, so they appealed that. The university has won. So it's a bit of a blow, not just to Peter Ridd, but to the idea of academic independence and free debate, isn't it?
I absolutely agree with you, Chris. It is a disappointing day for all of those Australians that believe in free speech and believe in academic freedom on university campuses to see this decision today coming out of the federal court. I mean, Peter Ridd, like so many researchers, students, academics on campus, just wants to be able to put forward his views and have them appropriately challenged in the right forums, but put forward his views and know that he will not be stifled from doing so. And unfortunately, that's what the JCU has attempted to do with him, and the case today upholds that decision made by the university. So a very disappointing day for free speech in Australia and on university campuses.
The legal measures are not done with yet. There is the opportunity to appeal to the High Court. We don't know whether that's going to happen. There would be strong backing for Peter Ridd if he did that. But is there an option here for the federal government to step in? Do they need to look at whether legal changes are required here to protect academic independence?
I think the important thing to note here, Chris, is that the Morrison government has initiated the French review of academic freedom on university campuses, and we've developed a code to guide universities in how they can promote academic freedom. Where I think there is a role to play now is for the Tertiary Education Quality and Standards Authority, the regulatory authority of universities, to start looking at how universities are applying the French Model Code or have determined that they can comply with that code on university campuses. I mean, I've said this in many forums before. What we appear to see at the moment is that universities are saying that they are promoting academic freedom on campus, but their actions don't necessarily reflect this. And that's what's happening at JCU. It's what's happened previously at the University of Queensland, QUT, a number of different universities across the country. So I think there's certainly a role to play in the regulator now stepping in and stamping down and making sure that universities are doing what they say they're doing.
And if I could put in a plug for my colleague Andrew Bolt, unless I'm corrected in my earpiece, I think he's got Peter Ridd on the program tonight, so people might want to have a look at that and hear from Professor Peter Ridd himself. Now, Claire, I want to come back to an issue that you and I have talked about before and you've been very active on, speaking in the Parliament about, and that is transgender issues, especially as they impact sport, especially as they unfairly impact women in sport. And the World Rugby Union has done some research into this area.
Yeah, so World Rugby has released a draft report to member nations this week looking at the issue of transgender women playing sport and what impact that might have on female sport. We don't know what's in that report yet, but media reports have divulged some of the findings of that report, and World Rugby have very kindly made public some of the research that they will be examining in putting that report together. It's been a very quite open consultation process, and I do want to just draw viewers' attention to some of the things that were found in that report. Mainly the fact that there is, according to World Rugby, a 20 to 30% greater likelihood that a woman will be injured if she's tackled by a transgender woman on the rugby field. That's on top of the physical disparity that's been identified through this research between women and trans women who are biological males, whether that's muscle mass, whether it's bone strength, height, pure strength. There's a significant disparity there. So this just backs up the concerns that I have had raised with me by a number of constituents across the country that in allowing transgender women to play sport, in allowing these biological males to play sport with biological females, we aren't creating an even playing field for women, whether that's in terms of safety or whether that's in terms of fairness and the likelihood that a biological male who identifies as female might beat them on the field.
It's a hell of a problem. I think most people watching and listening to you would just nod their head in agreement. It's common sense. We know that people who are born male are going to be stronger. They've been through puberty as a male. And sure, we want them to get the opportunity to play sport. But if they're going to play sport against women, that's going to be very unfair to those other women, and not just unfair, but, as you're suggesting, unsafe.
Absolutely. And, I mean, what we've seen from World Rugby is that they've run a comparatively very open process, and they have consulted with not just the lawyers, but also the scientists, the biologists, the physicians who understand these physical differences. The contrast couldn't be greater between what World Rugby have done in developing this draft report and what Sport Australia did last year in developing guidelines around transgender inclusion in sport, where they have repeatedly refused requests by me to provide the information just around who they consulted with, what groups around the country they consulted with, what women's sports groups they might have consulted with in coming up with these guidelines. So it's a very transparent process from World Rugby, and I'd like to see Sport Australia adopt a similar process here. Yeah,
Australia's got to sort this out. Are you getting a lot of feedback from people around the country?
Absolutely. I mean, as I've said to your viewers many times before, this has been an issue that's been raised with me almost continuously since I started my term as a senator last year. And since my speech in the Senate back in June, I've received numerous amounts of feedback from women who sadly feel scared to vocalise their views on this issue. But I certainly hope the research that World Rugby has developed might assist people in seeing that there are clear facts that back up this position. It's not just opining. Yeah. There is solid scientific evidence that supports the idea.
Might kick it along a bit. Thanks so much for joining us again, Claire.
Thanks very much, Chris.